square feet. Okay, if your bluegrasses are a lot smaller seed, so you're probably going to be around 2 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet, and then your fescues would be somewhere in that range too, maybe 4 to 6 pounds. But you can find those resources on the web or the seed company. But those are rough ideas. It's one of those things where I might use, if I want to get a quick establishment, I might use a little bit higher rate, but I don't want to go excessive. Some research has shown that when you overseed by too much, you get a quick, dense turf, but your rooting isn't going to be. Eventually, it catches up within a year or two. So you can save your money, but important that you get it at a good, reputable company and a good, reputable seed.
Okay. All right, I've got my seed down, and now I'm waiting and dreaming for that new lawn to establish itself, that germination period. What should I do or not do, and for how long? Should I irrigate? Can I walk on it? Can I let the dog walk on it? What should I consider there?
Yeah, those are great questions. What I try to do, and I'm going to answer more than that too, Len, as I go through here. Once the grass is up, so you want your lawn at 2 inches, you would start mowing it at about 3 inches. Okay, you want to take let it go about a third more than you want it before you cut, and that's how you should be mowing anyways.
So this is the established lawn.
That's once you've seeded the lawn and established. When you seed it, I would try to stay off it as much as possible, especially if the soil is wet. Now, can you walk across it to move a sprinkler? Sure you can, but you don't want to get any rutting in there. And the dogs, I would try to keep off as much as possible because they're going to run around. They're going to move seed and migrate, especially when it starts getting that little root on there. You don't want to disturb that little root. You want to give it a chance. Again, I mentioned to you I might fertilize a little bit at the beginning and then maybe 3 weeks later to push it a little bit. It's really important we can go back to our timing too. Our Kentucky bluegrass seed really slow to germinate. That's one of the big drawbacks with Kentucky bluegrass. It requires more water to keep it out of dormancy. I'm going to go back and forth here a little bit. Once it's established, but it's a great grass because it can go dormant and pop right back. Where the turf type tall fescue takes a long time to go dormant, but takes a really long time to heal up. So once it does go brown, it takes longer to heal up, where the Kentucky bluegrass will be immediate. But the seeding rate seeding timing on Kentucky bluegrass, I would be really hesitant to go much past the end of September, early October, because if you start getting really cold weather, there's cold temperatures, it's not going to germinate. We need a good 55 to 65 degree soil temperature to germinate. Kentucky bluegrass will take 14 days to germinate. Our ryegrasses can germinate in 5 days, 5 to 7 days. Our fescues would be anywhere between 7 to 10 days. So you start getting into those situations. And the other thing is when you start mixing seed, your ryegrass, you could say you're getting a good establishment, but if there's seed in that mixture, that's what you're probably seeing coming up right away. The Kentucky bluegrass, really, people will say, geez, it's the second week in October. Can I seed with Kentucky bluegrass? And I might say, you can try it, but I can't predict what the 1st of November is going to be like. One of the things you don't want to do is get into the season with grass just starting out and then have it freeze. Then it's going to die.
So is it more so a concern of the ground freezing, or like is frost a threat when you're seeding in the fall for germination?
That's a great question, Terry. It's the soil temperatures at that point are probably going to you're probably not going to get much germination. You might with the ryegrass if the soil temperatures warm back up, but one of the things that, again, I'll kind of go back in the spring seeding a little bit here because your question makes me think about this, is you can dormant seed. You can seed in November or January. It's just going to sit there until the soil temperatures warm up. So if the soil doesn't thaw and the grass start growing, it doesn't. You won't have a problem. You'll have a problem with it germinating. One of the things we often do is I like to tell people to try to frost crack seed. So if you come out in February when the ground starts thawing, you get these fissures in the ground. if you go out and put seed down at that time period, when the soil temperatures warm up, you will get grass on all those fissures. It's pretty slick. But that's better seed to soil contact you can get.
Gotcha. When the temperature gets up there for germination.
Right.
And you said it was about 55 degrees or higher?
I'd say 55 to 65 degrees would be really, really good. We might get a little bit either side of it, but optimum. And the thing is, when you go late August, your soil temperatures are way up there, and you'll germinate a lot quicker. So Kentucky bluegrass might germinate, instead of 14 days, might germinate in 12 or 10 days.
Gotcha.
So, it all depends on soil temperatures.
And kind of back a little bit too, when we have newly germinated seed and we've overseeded, we have an existing lawn too, and we mowed it down real tight, but then 3 weeks on, especially this summer when we have so much rain, my lawn's growing like crazy, we're looking for that new germination to get to the 3 inches before we mow. So that might even put us in a predicament where our existing lawn is 6 inches and getting kind of out there. Should we just let it go and wait it out?
No, that's a great question, and I think when I was speaking before, I was thinking new establishment. If I'm seeding into an existing lawn that's got a fairly decent stand, I'm gonna keep mowing as regular, as long as I don't migrate that seed, because that existing turf is also going to protect that young turf that's in there. So yeah, I wouldn't wait for 6 inches, because that's going to even out. You need sunlight for that new seed too. And when we talked about mowing the turf low, I'm thinking you got a really bad situation where you want to come in there to get it started, mow it low. I wouldn't scalp it so you kill all the existing turf that's there. I want to just be clear on that. I'm not advocating coming in scalping that lawn down at a time of seeding to nothing. I would just keep it a little bit on the lower side. So if you're maintaining your lawn at 2 inches, don't go in and mow it at an inch to exceed it.
Gotcha. So keep it down around on the low side, 2 inches, and then we apply our seed. Right. And then you would mow as regular, or, give it, an extra week or so in between mowings?
I would mow as regular if again, it's tough to answer without seeing the situation. If you have existing turf and it's just thin, I would mow as regular. If you've got bare areas in there, I would mow around the bare areas until they establish.
Now, I want to irrigate the seed unless it rains, I would imagine. Or do I need to do that? And how much water do I put on? And how do I know how much water I'm putting on?
Boy, these are all great questions.
Well.
What I do when I do a new establishment, I turn the irrigation on. We're fortunate to have automated irrigation, but I might have that come on 3 times a day, but really 1 or 2 spins of the sprinkler. So what I'm trying to do is just keep the surface moist while the seed's establishing. Any more than that is a waste of water, because there's no roots yet, and you run the risk of migrating the seed. So I'm trying to keep that soil surface somewhat moist until it germinates, and then I readjust my irrigation accordingly. I might give it a little bit longer, but less. Once it's up there, I'm going to go back. I'm just going to keep watching the site, though, for dry turf or dry soil. The beauty of seeding in late August, early September is oftentimes you have a lot of soil moisture in the morning. So I think light frequent in the beginning is really important, okay? That being said, you have to be careful, because if you're doing light frequent in August, you don't want to get damping off, which is a disease that can destroy your whole stand. So you really have to be conscious of what the weather is. If it's very humid out, you can really want to cut back on that regime. But if it's I call a high dry sky, where there's not a lot of humidity and it's windy and sunny, you're probably going to want to irrigate 3 to 4 times a day with just a couple spins of the sprinkler or a quick syringe off with a hose.
We actually get a lot of questions of, putting down new seed, how do I water? And often it's kind of taken as this is the application that grass needs, whether seed or existing, but you've really broken it down into 2 areas. We're first going to irrigate for germination, to get those seeds to sprout. They need a moist environment, as you're talking about. But then once we do have roots coming out of those seeds, it's now we're focused on root development, and you kind of split those into 2 and have 2 different irrigation strategies.
Yes, once your seed germinates, 2 things have happened. Once, now you have roots that are a little deeper, and the other is you don't run the risk of seed migration with irrigation because it's established. Now, in very new germination, you still run that risk. So I would still watch that. Instead of going 3 times a day, I might go 2 times a day. But I would not put any water down after, say, 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because we don't want to go into the evening with high humidity, because then you really run the risk of some diseases. You do want it to dry down a little. The important thing in the beginning is make sure the soil is moist, not soaked.
And we also have a lot of customers with really large lawns who can't irrigate, even with a hose and sprinklers, can't get to every part of the lawn. So should the consistent morning dews we get late August, early September be sufficient for germination, and then hopefully we get more rain in September than we did in August? Is that natural irrigation sufficient enough for overseeding?
Well, you have to, I think, assess the problem, what you have. I go out every year or so when I overseed my backyard. Okay, I have some issues back there with trees and so forth. I don't have irrigation. I do get established. I do have turf to establish. Am I going to have some seed mortality? I might have some seed mortality, but when you have an existing thin turf, you still have the ability to hold moisture in that canopy from that turf. And I realize that water is going to be an issue, but if you want to get new turf established, you need to apply it. And I don't know how to say, you're probably going to have some seed loss, but I've had pretty good luck. Again, going at the end of August and early September. Now, my situation may be different. If I'm doing a totally new establishment without any grass or any canopy, I would use a mulch. And that's another thing homeowners can do. They can mulch areas if they're doing areas around there. Once they seed it, put a light mulch down there, keep the moisture and seed temperatures up. If you go late in the season, a mulch will help keep those temperatures up. So mulching could be very beneficial in those situations. So if you don't have water, that would be a great way to do it. And if you have a large lawn, I would assume that you would get areas that are sparse that you would probably overseed, and you can mulch those areas alone.
When you say mulch, of course you're not talking about the landscaping mulch. Is it a chopped straw, a compost that you're recommending? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Some people will use a light composting after they put seed down. It would be very light. You can buy products that have it's basically paper fiber. Mm-hmm. That once you irrigate them, they'll break down. Sometimes they have fertilizer incorporated them, starter fertilizer. That can aid in it. You want to, and then of course a weed-free straw or hay, and that's something we always recommend with people, because if you spend all this money on putting a nice lawn and all the seed, and then you get a hay off of a farm that's got the old common tall fescue in there and orchard grass in there, then you're going to have that in your new lawn. You're going to get seed that you didn't pay for in there.
This has been very enlightening to me, because I have a well, and so I always time my overseeding, and I do it every other year, so that if I have 3 or 4 days of consistent rain, I would want to put my seed down before that. And what I'm gleaning from what you said is that's probably not the way to go, because the seed's going to be washed away somewhere.
Well, if it's in, again, with the situations vary. If it's in an existing turf that's somewhat established but thin, I would take advantage of the rain. I don't think it's going to migrate very far. If it's in a newly established area, again, it's all soil, no. Right. Then I would. That's what I'm talking about with the irrigation running off. But if I'm doing an overseeding in my yard, I take advantage of the rain if it's going to come. I don't think it's going to migrate. If it's in slices or aeration holes, it's not going to migrate. So it's two different things we're talking about here, Len. So I'm sorry for the confusion on that, but I think if I'm irrigating a bare soil, I'm going to do it lightly, and I don't want to do it before deluge.
I just didn't want my frugality to get in the way of success, that's all. Okay, so now the seed is up. I've mowed it a couple times in the fall. The October winds are blowing, snow comes in. Should I do anything different to my overseeded lawn the next spring that I wouldn't normally do?
Because it's young, I would fertilize it. I want to keep pushing a little bit.
Standard lawn fertilizer?
Standard lawn fertilizer at that point, once it's established, I would fertilize.